Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining me today on our personal interview. Just a chance to get to know you a little bit better and have members get to know you a little bit better too. So you're new to Manitoba Women in Construction Board. In fact, you're our newest member. So I want to formally welcome you. And this is obviously a very different way of joining a board. I think your first meeting was a Zoom meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so
it was. We had like a little sort of interview process right before everything started happening, but then the actual first board meeting was a Zoom board meeting.
Yeah, and I think that was probably one of the first Zoom meetings I'd ever done as well. So yeah, it was so new to everybody. But so this has definitely been an experience you probably will never forget.
I think everything about this year, everyone will remember.
Probably. Yeah, very true. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you ended up at SMS as a lighting designer?
Well, I was working with my father, who's an electrical contractor, for about 7 years, did my whole apprenticeship with him, wrote my ticket, got my contractor's license, and we were doing mostly commercial, some residential stuff. And my dad recently retired after I left, but it's kind of getting to that point where it's either, he'd like to retire and pass things off. So I needed to sort of make a decision about what I wanted to do. And after a few years working in a small business, I started to think that I'm not sure that I have it. Like my dad loved running his own business and he was really good at it. But I'm maybe not the same personality type, and I like having a little bit more structure. I don't know what it is, but I was just like, no, I want to start looking at something else and seeing what else is out there. And my favorite part about being an electrician, or at least the jobs that I always found the most interesting or exciting, were lighting upgrades. Even just changing a ballast. I love changing ballasts. It was so fun, and I was good at it. So I kind of started thinking about how lighting kind of was a combination of things that I enjoyed and loved. Like I liked being an electrician, but prior to that I was in a more artistic field, and that's sort of my background is somewhat of creative. I love to draw and sew and create things, so lighting was like creating with electricity, so it was kind of a natural fit. I lucked out big time finding SMS. I actually think I did a Google search, like looking for jobs with like lighting in it, and happened to find, we're looking for a junior lighting designer. That isn't the position that I technically have. I'm an electrical designer.
Okay.
They didn't end up hiring a junior lighting position quite yet. We're sort of working on developing a lighting department within SMS. We have an architectural lighting designer who's got a master's from a university in Germany, I think. She's got some very impressive credentials and is very talented. So I do work with her, but I'm also doing other projects where I'm taking on like smaller projects where I'm doing all of the things, not just lighting, like power and systems, that kind of stuff. And with my electrical background, they kind of thought that was a good fit, being an installer and being a sort of the end user, then kind of coming behind the scenes and doing the design would have a unique perspective.
Awesome. So do you get to site much as a designer now?
Well, it's hard. I would say less these days, but I mean,
yeah.
No one's on site right now, mostly. But definitely when I started, I think they tried to have me on jobs where I had to do a lot of sort of site surveys because they wanted to ease me into, being in an office as opposed to being in tools. I still do go and do site surveys depending on what the job is. If we're doing some sort of renovation, we need to see what the space physically is. So I do get to be on site for things like that. And then sometimes during construction, if there's some kind of issue or something that we need to see, I get to go occasionally, but I am primarily in the office now.
Okay. So do you miss anything about actually being an electrician on a commercial site?
I miss my ladders. I miss running. Today I was just trying to get like comfortable in my chair at work and like adjusting my monitors and my keyboards, and I'm like, I loved running up and down ladders. I loved carrying ladders and being on my feet all day. I used to think that that was a tiring job until I had to sit all day and realized that that somehow feels more exhausting. I was more energetic at the end of the day having held my arms above my head for the whole day.
Yeah.
Than I have been, sitting in a comfy chair all day.
Interesting. So what do you think are two or three traits that anyone, male, female, anyone would need to be successful as a skilled trade on a construction site?
You need to be a good listener. It's very important, I think, as an apprentice to listen to direction and be able to understand what your foreman or your journeyman person is teaching you and observing what they're doing, because that's a big part of the learning process. I found for that is, you're watching what they're doing and replicating that. So you need to listen well.
Okay.
Liking working with your hands, obviously, and having a physical job. This next one could be true, I think, with a lot of jobs, but problem solving, because I don't know if that's just a general rule of construction, but things don't always go right. You have to figure things out. And that is if any kind of service work. I mean, that's basically what you're doing, is troubleshooting. There's something has gone wrong and someone has called you to fix it. So you need to have some creative thinking skills as well.
Okay, awesome. So if you looked back and you had a chance to talk to your 17-year-old self, what would you tell yourself at this point?
Black hair dye does not suit you. Choose a new color. I found a little more of a roundabout way getting into construction. I didn't do it right away, and I would have had the opportunity, being, in a family of electricians. And I don't regret, taking a longer path, but maybe valuing education a little bit more, study a little harder. Not because it necessarily, will help you find a job, but, there's some skills that I could have learned that I think are somewhat lost. And to be very open and accept help. I think that was something that I did not learn till much later in life. Accept help.
Yeah.
Be open to other people.
That's important, especially in construction. You absolutely cannot do everything by yourself.
No, you definitely can't.
There's a huge team there, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
exactly. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to switch tracks a little bit, and I'm going to ask you a couple more personal questions so that we can get to know you a little bit better, who you are inside.
All right.
Very important in construction. Are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker?
I am a coffee drinker. Dark black coffee, for sure.
All day or just in the morning?
I have a cutoff. If I know if I have caffeine after like 2:30, I'm going to have a hard time falling asleep. But yes, coffee all day. I did have a couple teas this week, but don't tell anyone that.
Change it up a bit, yeah. So are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person, yeah. I like to get to work very early before everybody else when it's nice and quiet. And by 9 o'clock, I'm like, okay, sun's still up, but I'm ready to go to bed.
All right. So do you watch sports on TV much at all?
No.
Okay, so if you had to watch sports on TV for some reason, which sport would it be?
Probably hockey. I like hockey, don't get me wrong, and I'll go to hockey games. I don't watch sports on TV because I just don't find the experience really the same, but, Canadian, I love hockey.
Okay.
To some degree.
Awesome. All right. What do you love about living in Manitoba?
Hmm. I love that this province is clean for some reason is the first thing coming to mind. Clean in nature, but that's because I lived in Toronto briefly, and you know, there's a bit of
an experience.
Yeah, it's a bit of a small town vibe to the whole province. Even in Winnipeg, and I like that you can get out of the city very quickly into nature.
Okay.
Lots of lakes.
Yeah. If you had some spare time and you had a book or your TV, would you pick up the book or would you watch something on TV?
I probably watch too much TV. I like reading, but it usually only happens when I'm like out at the lake and it's like early in the morning. That's my routine. But home in the evening, I like having the TV on, just that distraction, that noise.
Okay, so do you watch regular TV or do you have streaming services?
Just streaming services.
Okay, so favorite streaming service?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, I have Netflix and I have my sister's Amazon Prime account, which I also enjoy.
Okay.
That's about it.
So what was the best Netflix series you've seen?
I don't know if it's necessarily the best, but it's popping into mind was 100 Humans, when they did a bunch of sort of social and psychological experiments with a really diverse group of participants. So that was kind of some pretty interesting.
I'll have to check that one out.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, and so I'm wrapping things up with each interview with the same question, which is, since this whole COVID situation has happened, you've worked at home for at least a longer chunk of time than you would normally have. What have you learned about yourself in that time?
That I need certain things to focus. I need to get up and get out of my comfy PJs. Music, as much as I think it helps me sometimes, is distracting. And I should wear earplugs. I'm just so easily distracted. That's what I find.
Did you know that before the whole COVID situation, or has this sort of come to you?
No, I think I knew that pretty well. I was worried about working at home. I'm like, oh no, how is this going to work? It didn't help that my home office was right next to the fridge and pantry either. Snacking dangers.
Yeah. Never good. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great chatting with you and getting to know you a little better.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.